Hey, everybody. Welcome to Patreon Radio. I want to talk to you a little bit today about the symbol of the circled dot. If any of you have read Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, you'll see that. You'll see that symbol is the artwork for the cover of that book. It's a circle with a tiny dot inside it. And this is a very ancient Pythagorean symbol, and it was meant to represent the first metaphysical being, or what they would call the monad, or the absolute. Now, the theory goes that the monad is source, where everything comes from, and everything around that is just a dispersion of this monad. You could say it's kind of like the nodal point where everything is organized around. And why I'm talking about this is because this is very important when it comes to our understanding of attention. Our attention is the most important thing we have because our attention is the organizing function. You could say reality stems from attention. Attention, then, in many ways, is the factory of reality. So if we look at our reality, and our reality is something that is not pleasing to us, or is something that is difficult for us, or painful for us, in an unnecessarily painful way, in a suffering way, then we can see, okay, something's going on with my attention here. And typically, by and large, the problem that we experience in our life are down to fragmented attention. Our attention has been split, it's been fogged, it's been obscured. We've lost sovereignty, we've lost mastery over our attention. So attention is fundamental. It's very important. Attention is our connection to source. It's our connection to the absolute. It's the circle with the dot in the center of it. And the reason that we meditate, the reason that we do a lot of these sort of practices is to establish a greater connection with our attention. Now, what's happening globally at the moment is there is a concerted effort to wrestle our attention from us. And you could say that this is sort of the end game in the degeneration of humankind in many ways, where we are slowly becoming zombies to a certain extent, where we are losing our ability to control reality, to shape reality, and because we are being entertained to death, right? The classic thing is the social media or the Netflix series, this rolling, looping, scrolling entertainment systems that are hooked to our attention, and they just feed off us, constantly. And you might notice that this then happens in other areas of your life, like, I mean, the the social media Netflix type bundle is one area, but the other is just the way we kind of often just accept mediocrity. The way we exist in a kind of a low imaginative state. And all of this is down to a fragmented attention. Because when your attention is fragmented, you aren't really living a life with any intention. You are just moving from mild suffering to moments of dullness, right? You know what I mean? There isn't really a sense of, oh, fuck, I'm balls out living my life right now. We're kind of, what happens is that we often spend our life in a kind of a near sedated state. And and that's very much kind of by design. there are forces out there in the world that would have us quite passive, right? Quite numb. You might even recognize it in yourself, a kind of a lack of a range of emotions inside yourself, maybe just a lack of joy, even, right? And so much of this is just connected to the suppression of our attention, the fragmentation of our attention. Part of the reason why psychedelics can be so attractive is because when we do psychedelics, our attention gets turned back to the normal level, right? We do psychedelics and we are suddenly like dragged, kicking and screaming, into a place of deep, deep presence. You can also achieve this through meditation. You can achieve it through different practices. Psychedelics is just, I think, perhaps the most radical version of this. And but so our kind of challenge at this time is to wrestle back our attention from all the forces that would render us numb. And in particular, in this year, I think we're going to see a huge amount of that. I think, like, as we move into the more Aquarian energy, now that Aquarian energy, it represents a couple of things. One is a kind of a complete liberalization of norms, think back to the hippies in the 60s. Another is just community, it's a time of we come together. But the other thing is technology, technological advances. So we're at a point where the phenomenal leaps that we've been making in technology, we're beginning to realize, I think we're not even beginning to realize, I think we've realized it full on, that many of these things aren't actually just tools. They're kind of tools that we can use. They're actually oppressive structures that are robbing us of our freedom, right? So the work this year is really to hold on to your attention. And I think a thing that kind of can be really useful just as you're sort of listening to this is just to become aware of, well, where are you leaking attention? Now, one thing at the moment is the the increased amount of chaos on the planet, right? And we're in a state of kind of just rolling wars. There doesn't seem to be peacetime. And because we have this 24-hour news coverage and everyone seems to be very aware of news and things that aren't really directly related to them, but are related at a global scale, we can't really escape this. Or you have to make efforts to kind of create a firewall around yourself so you can escape it. So it's important to kind of recognize, okay, where is my attention leaking? Am I paying attention to fear? Am I paying attention to catastrophe? Because what we pay attention to, again, remembering this, our attention is the organizing principle. It's the kernel of understanding, the kind of the nodal point, and everything is born from this attention, right? So the I it's a little bit like kind of, a spinning circle. The center is the part that grounds it to the earth, and the rest just moves out in ever wilder circles. And so becoming a person who can master your own attention is really the most crucial thing here because your attention is what creates reality. And if you can decide, I'm going to become a person who creates my own reality, in order to do that, you're going to need to have phenomenal attention holding skills. You're going to need to be able to anchor your attention, to not allow your attention to be pulled outside of you. An example of how this happens an awful lot is in the interpersonal. When you're in the company of someone who is stressed, when you're in the company of someone who is angry. And there is often a tendency, you notice it, the pull of the anger, the pull of the stress, you get sucked into it. That again, it's your attention. If you have mastery over your attention, you can remain solid, you can remain sovereign, you can really remain unbothered in the midst of all kinds of stresses. I'm sure many of you who spent Christmas at home in your families are probably listening to this going, God, I wish my attention skills were better and I didn't get pulled into so much of the collective family drama while I was home. Or maybe you did. Maybe you survived it. Maybe you managed to kind of just surf on the surface of the drama and not get pulled under the water. So this is crucial. Becoming a person whose attention is their own. You do not get pulled into other people's dramas. You don't get pulled into the world's dramas. And what this does is it provides a beacon. You become like a lighthouse because at one level, you're living an alternate reality. It's like, think of it like this. You're in a car. The car is full. Everyone in the car is going, we're crashing, we're crashing, we're crashing. And you're there in your seat going, I don't think we're crashing. I think we're driving just fine. And that level of coherence, that capacity to hold your attention inside yourself, to realize that my calm, solid, unbothered attention shapes reality, and I will not get pulled into disaster and catastrophizing, that keeps the car on the road. I think what we're being asked to do in 2026 is keep the car on the road. It's a year, kind of a threshold year, where if you pay attention to the catastrophe that's happening at a 3D level, the stuff that's on the news, the stuff that's on the ground, then that's all you're going to see. But when you can begin to connect to the deeper sense of imagination, the infinite time inside of you, and you know that what this is it's the closing of a cycle and the beginning of another cycle. It's the darkest before the dawn. We're in this period where we're moving from a very masculine, heavy, dense energy into a much more feminine, receiving energy. That's why there's so many grotesque examples of males on the planet at the moment in high places, right? We're coming to the end. It's the kind of the final death rattle, you could say, of whatever this is. So it's so important at this time for us to be kind of torch bearers for the new energy. People who hold their attention and we remain attuned, we remain coherent in all the madness. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Thai Buddhist, oh sorry, was he Cambodian? I think he was Cambodian Buddhist. Um, he used to always talk about when the Cambodian refugees um were leaving, right? And oh, I'm sorry, he was Vietnamese. So my whole Southeast Asian, I've got them all mixed up at the moment. But when the Vietnamese refugees were fleeing the country, how and in these tiny little boats, and he would talk about if one person on the boat could remain calm, then the boat would be safe. Yeah, I always thought this was a beautiful story of these boats that were loaded high with refugees crossing deep, deep seas at night with like very little equipment and everyone kind of shrieking and screaming. And he said that if as long as one person could hold the tone of calm, could master their attention and stay in this place of everything is working out exactly for my favor, then it had a soothing effect on everyone on the boat and the boats reached land. And that's what we're being asked to do this year. Um, and this is also why I'm launching this course in February. This is a course that's going to be 28 days. We're going to meditate every day. And we're going to explore meditation and manifestation and really just becoming masters of our attention. So if any of you guys want to join that course, it's going to be half price for Patreon members. It's going to start on the 1st of February. And it'll run alongside all the other Patreon content that I'll be putting out. But really, guys, this is just sort of something to begin to think about as we roll into 2026. Where is your attention? Because your attention It's what connects you to the absolute. It's what connects you to source. But if you are allowing your attention to be fragmented and dragged into chaotic relationships, to be dragged into like news programs, to be dragged into the fear of others, then your attention is weakened and it makes you vulnerable. We want to be empowered this year because we can have a huge impact. Okay, that's it. Talk to you all very soon and sending you loads of love. Bye bye.